All right.
My text was effective for you, Jackie.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, everybody.
That's all right. Just going to count us in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon. I'm going to call the City Council meeting of April 5th to order. If you could all rise for the singing of the National Anthem. Thank you.
National Anthems are being played.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the National Film Board for the images that you saw, and thank you to a member from the Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the singing that you heard. We're going to move right along into our meeting today under item number 3, the adoption of the previous council minutes for the meeting of March 22nd. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Jackie Clayton. Council adopt the minutes of the City Council meeting held on Monday, March 22, 21, as presented.
Great, thank you for that. I will call the motion. Please vote. And that's carried unanimously. Next would be the adoption of the special City Council meeting called on March 31st. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I move that City Council adopt the minutes of the special City Council meeting held Wednesday, March 31st, 2021, as presented.
Great, thank you for that. Call the question. Please vote. And that too passes unanimously. Moving along to the adoption of today's agenda, we look for a motion on that. Councillor Minhas.
I move the council adopt the agenda as presented.
Perfect. Seeing no comments or questions, just give another minute there in case anybody had anything. Seeing nothing, call the question. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Moving next under delegations, we did have one delegation let us know that they would be attending today. A reminder that the 3 p.m. delegation, you don't need to let us know ahead of time. If you do, that's great, so that we're prepared in case you have any specific questions. First on our agenda is the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation. There is information. The delegation information is in your package, and I see Ms. Miller has joined us. If you could just introduce yourself for the record, that would be great.
Dawn Miller, and I'm the Major Gifts Officer for the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation.
Great, thank you, Ms. Miller. Welcome, and if you'd like to go ahead, about 5 minutes would be great, and then there will be a time for council to ask questions following that.
Sure. So just a quick little update about some of the stuff that's going on at the new hospital. The journey has been long, but the finish line is getting closer. Multiple teams are on site working hard to get the building ready, systems tested, furniture and equipment installed, with staff training and orientation plans prepared for implementation. Our official name is the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital. The name was approved by the Minister of Health following in-person and online engagement with staff and regional stakeholders in 2019. The name can now be seen on the side of the hospital. Opening day. Question is at the top of everyone's minds. We are not sure exactly of the date as yet, except to say that it'll be late fall. I am on the grand opening planning committee, which is scheduled to meet the 1st of May, so we'll have a more definite date at that time. Original planning to open in June of this year, but those plans were delayed for a good reason. Once phase 1 of construction was completed, work on phase 2 was approved and is in full swing right now. Phase 2 includes the surgical inpatient rooms on the 1st floor, the adult mental health wing, as well as building out the additional 2 operating rooms that were initially shelled in. We are very excited about the completion of these areas, and when the new hospital opens, it will not be a construction site anymore. This also provides an opportunity for the foundation to provide additional support with the purchase of equipment that will enhance or provide a new service that may not exist right now. The foundation works with our community members to fundraise to provide these new pieces of equipment or programs for the city and region. One piece of equipment that is still requiring funds is the cardiac monitoring enhancements. This would see 25 new enhanced cardiac monitors being purchased. These units combine monitoring with flexible portability within one compact unit. These new cardiac monitors are for the emergency, pediatrics, diagnostic imaging, and there will also be 6 additional small central monitoring units within NICU, or neonatal intensive care, that will allow physicians and nurses to easily observe cardiac monitoring of multiple patients in NICU. With additional surgical suites opening, we have the need for additional enhanced surgical treatment and cancer diagnosis in women's health. Enhancing treatment and cancer diagnosis for women with suspected breast and uterine cancers and infertility. Improving access to cancer diagnosis and treatment for women in Grande Prairie. Enhancing this service will also save patients and families time and cost to travel to Edmonton to obtain the new service. Due to our COVID, our tours have been canceled, but work continues at the site. The Gprh project team continues to work with the furniture and equipment team as deliveries of furniture and equipment is consistently arriving and being assembled. I was there a couple of weeks ago, and the CT scanners have just been installed. Our LINAC radiation units have been installed in our radiation vaults. One item that was purchased by the foundation is the Omnicell medication cabinets, which are installed in the med rooms throughout the hospital. These units ensure that the patient is getting correct medication, the correct dosage, as well as ensuring that no medication goes missing. Some of the new technology that will be installed at our new hospital. The Gprh emergency department is the first point of contact when driving up to the facility. With the entrance located on the south end of the building, the emergency department has over 50 treatment spaces for potential use. This is nearly double space currently utilized at the QE2. There are also 50 public parking spaces available nearby. The space is significantly larger, both the entire department as well as the individual patient areas are significantly larger. The ability to offer privacy in care is a significant benefit. Aside from offering peace and calm, the ability to be open regarding patient history will improve care outcomes. A couple weeks ago, most of the furniture for the emergency department was in place. One area that is set to see growth in the future is outpatient department. This is an area in healthcare that will continue to grow as instruments become smaller and less invasive. More and more procedures will become part of the outpatient department moving forward, and is an extremely large area. With this in mind, patients requiring ambulance transport to the outpatient department will have an EMS reserved ambulance parking bay located directly outside of the outpatient area to minimize the amount of travel for patients. This area has 2 isolation rooms, 1 isolation procedure room, a new cast room, a designated recovery area, exam rooms, and procedure rooms. This will be a very, very busy area. To keep it short, so I am happy to answer any further questions that you might have about the new hospital opening and some of the areas and equipment that we're looking to purchase or are needed.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Ms. Miller. Questions for the delegation?
What?
I know.
Wow.
I see Councillor O'Toole.
I got me muted. Now I'm good to go. So when the potential opening happens, are we going to, is the city or region going to be getting some new specialists, or have they arrived already? And what kind of amount of new people will be hired at this time?
So they're looking at 1,300 to staff it initially. That actually isn't even including the doctors. There is new doctors that are coming on a regular basis. The recruitment department's working constantly, to get all of those sorts of specialists here. We completed our urology program, so that brought us in some new urologists. So as we expand and as we can get new equipment in and our ORs opening, we'll get the specialists here. They make their money from the bulk of their money as a specialist in the ORs. We just don't have the OR space right now. So they'll start coming as we know we're going to be open, and they know they can get the patients and can get into the OR. So it's all, we did think we were going to be open in June, but they just did not want to have it as a construction zone, which I think is a good idea. I was there for a tour and trying to get some stuff done, and we were kind of blocked from different areas. So if they're not a construction zone, it'll be much, much easier, and we'll start seeing those specialists come in. It's going to be gradual. Remember that. This is a huge, huge building. It's a gradual increase of staff, patients, so it'll be time. But it's one of those things, if you build it, they will come.
I just have one more question, if you don't mind. The current hospital,
Yeah.
When do we expect the medical aspect of it over at the new hospital, and what's going to happen with, I know it's going to be some time to do some rearranging and stuff like that, but when can you see that starting, and when can you possibly see it being a full-fledged use, whatever it's going to be?
So the new hospital is considered an acute care. So if you're in any sort of acute situation, and that goes for our mental health as well. That's why the adult mental health and a new wing for youth mental health is there. That'll be our acute care. Now, let's say you happen to break a hip, or grandma breaks a hip and there's no place for her to go. There's going to be the more extended care at the Q2. A lot of the offices are going to move there that are now out in the community, our mental health, our payroll. All of AHS is spread out throughout the city. So the idea is as we move over, now it was going to be a little bit more gradual given that some of it was construction, but now it's going to be boom, peds moves, surgical inpatient rooms all move, all those departments will move, and all those patients will be at the new hospital. Then that gives us the opportunity to have longer stays at Q2. And the QE2 at some point, and it could be 5 years or more, will be considered like a health center rather than a hospital. But that, again, will be dependent on getting funding to make those changes and to make it a health center. So that's the plan. It'll be a few years before that's fully implemented. We'll still have an emergency there. Just if it's acute, you're going to get moved over to the new hospital. So, but if you say you're not sure if your child has, a flu or something, you'd be fine to take them to the emergency at the Q too. You'd still get a good level of care. There'll still be casting, diagnostic imaging, all that sort of thing there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that information.
Yeah.
It's very valuable.
Yes, of course.
Councillor Minhas.
I think I was part of my answer, I was going to ask with the Q2 hospital, what's the plan, but you already answered it. So.
Yeah. So, more of the longer term stays. Of course, Mackenzie Place now is all renovated. All 3 floors are open there. The rec department's there and for their ability to help people as they're recuperating, that sort of thing. So the idea is to make clinics there and have those sorts of offices there. So.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any further questions? Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks for coming in today, Don. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Just wondering if you can give me an update. I'm hearing different things, and maybe it's not yours to say, but are you hearing when the new hospital opens, is the old hospital's emergency wing going to remain open?
My understanding is that it will remain open. How long? I don't know, but that's okay. My understanding. And that's why I'm trying to make the point to everybody that if you're in an acute situation, you need to go to the new hospital. But my understanding is the emergency will still be open because we're still going to have beds available for people. So, yeah. When that'll change, I have not heard. That, of course, that's, part of the plan. Once we get in there, okay, now can we close this? What do we close? What can we still keep using? That sort of thing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Still a work in progress.
Further comments, questions? Seeing none, I thank you for coming today. We deal with delegation business further on in our agenda, so you're more than welcome to stick around. I just ask you to turn your screen off, or if you choose to leave, someone from administration will follow up with you.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye. All right, moving along, nothing under reports today, into committee business. First on the agenda, community services, I'm just sorry, give me 1 second here to catch up. Perfect. The Community Services Committee meeting from March 30th, and the committee chair, Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd just like to make a motion that we accept the minutes from the Community Services Committee meeting held March 30th, 2020, 9 a.m. as presented.
Perfect. No comments, questions, errors. I will call a question. Please vote. That passes unanimously. Meeting highlights, Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So we had one delegate. We had a lady come from, Miss Robinson, coming from the Peace Library System to give us an update of what's going on with our library system locally and around the region. We also had a really good conversation with Ms. Catherine Ridgway from our Revolution Place, talking about the new RFP that we're about to issue at some point this year towards building a new event center, potentially in an area, and what that could look like. So some good conversation around that. And that was the highlights of the report.
Great, thank you for that. Seeing nothing else, moving on to item 7.2, the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting, and Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would move that Council adopt the minutes of the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting held Tuesday, March 30th, 2021, as presented.
Perfect. Seeing no one moving, I will call a question. Please vote. That passes unanimously. Meeting highlights, Councillor Palat, Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I think the most interesting conversation concerned the new bike park that is being built near Crystal Lake with some COVID response funding that the city has received. We got an update on what the landscaping around the park will look like. So not what the actual park itself will look like, that's still in design, but the trees and things that will go around it. And it was very I think it was very relieving for myself and others to see how much work is being done by administration to put up trees, to make sure that it's properly screened from the road so it's not creating a visual distraction to drivers, to block the wind so it's a more comfortable place for people to use. And I think it's going to be a really good looking facility once it's done. Council and committee were also able to provide some input on their hopes for the area that administration will be taking into mind as they work with the contractors to get this project done. So if folks are interested in that bike park, I'd encourage them to go and watch the committee meeting.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Councillor Bressie. Moving along, item 7.3, the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting, Councillor O'Toole. Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Toole, you're just muted.
There we go. Well, it wouldn't be with me without making a mistake or two during a meeting, so thank you for catching that.
No worries.
I move the council adopt the minutes of the Protective and Social Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 as presented.
Perfect. Seeing no errors or omissions, anybody indicating anything, please vote. Call the question and please vote. And that passes unanimously. Meeting highlights, Councillor O'Toole, sorry.
We did have a highlights from our Chris Manuel. One of the highlights was we had a tender go out for the towing for the city of Grande Prairie, and that was successful to somebody. The information wasn't available at the time of the meeting, but that's a contract that is desirable in the city. So with that, everything else was pretty much on par. It was an update, and our outstanding items list was narrowed down to nothing at this point, but I understand that it's going to be heavy in the near future.
Perfect. Thank you for that update, Councillor O'Toole. Moving along to item 7.4, the Corporate Services Committee meeting. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Yetki Clayton, and I move the council adopt the minutes of Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, March 30, 2021 as presented.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We'll call the question. Please vote. Is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 7.4.1, the Business Improvement Area Assessment.
Now, Business Improvement Area Assessment Tax C-1431, C-1432, and C-1433. I recommended the council give the first reading to the bylaw C-1431, being the business tax and assessment bylaw.
Perfect. We will, sorry, no debates or questions on the first motion, so call the question. And that one is carried unanimously. Oh, mine didn't pop up. I apologize for that. I jumped the gun there. Sorry, we're just not getting Councillor Bressie's vote. Now we're good. Councillor Bressie, could you tell us how you vote? Oh, he's frozen. Okay. Sure, he'll rejoin in a moment. Could we just redo that vote, possibly? Clear that and wait for Councillor Bressie? Or do you want to go without? There we go. Okay, try that again. We'll just wait a second here. There's Councillor Bressie. All right, we're going to do that one again. If we could please vote on the motion. There we go. And now that passes unanimously. My apologies for that. Second reading, Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the second reading to bylaw C-1431.
All right, questions for administration? Comments on second reading? In regards to bylaw C-1431, seeing nothing, I will call the question, please.
Good.
That's passed unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
May I ask Council to have the third reading to bylaw C-1431 at this meeting?
Perfect. This is a motion in order for us to be able to have third reading here today at this meeting. Call the question. Please vote. And that's passed unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the third reading to bylaw C-1431 being the business and tax assessment as presented.
This is a motion to have third reading on bylaw C-1431. Sorry, this is a motion to give third reading on C-1431. Call the question. Please vote. That's passed unanimously. Next, Councillor bylaw C-1432.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I move the Council give the first reading to bylaw C-1432 being the downtown business improvement area business tax bylaw.
All right, no questions or debate on first reading. I'll call the question. That's passed unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the second reading to bylaw C-1432.
And this is a motion to give second reading. Comments or questions for administration? Seeing nothing, call the question. Please vote. That's carried unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
I have the third reading to bylaw C-1432 being the downtown business improvement area business tax bylaw.
Perfect. So this motion is for us to be able to have third reading here tonight at this meeting, and I will call the question. Councillor, oh, there we go. Perfect. That's carried unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the third reading to bylaw C-1432 being the downtown improvement area business tax bylaw.
All right, giving third reading to the bylaw here tonight. Seeing no questions or comments, call the question. That's carried unanimously. And Councillor Minhas, I think you have one more piece of business.
Yeah. I ask Council to give the first reading to bylaw C-1433 being the downtown improvement area at the business tax rate bylaw.
All right, first reading here. No comments or debate on first reading. Please vote. Call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the second reading to bylaw C-1433.
Comments or questions on second reading of bylaw C-1433? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Please vote. That carries unanimously. Councillor Minhas.
Can I ask Council to have the third reading to bylaw C-1433 at this meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Minhas. This is a motion in order for us to be able to have third reading tonight at this meeting. It must pass unanimously. Call the question. Please vote. Councillor Minhas.
Ask Council to give the third reading to bylaws C-1433 being the downtown business improvement area business tax rate bylaw.
Perfect. As the previous motion was passed unanimously, this motion is in order to give third reading to bylaw C-1433 for business tax in respect of the business operating within the downtown improvement area of the city. I will call the question. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you for that, Councillor Minhas. Now, also in your meeting, item 7.4.2, Council Advocacy Priorities.
Yeah, I ask Council approve the 2021 Council Advocacy Priority List.
So you'll see in front of you is Council's advocacy priorities for the remainder of this term for 2021. I don't see any comments or questions from Council at this time, so I'll call the question. And just that motion was passed unanimously. And just before we move on, for those who might be watching, the list there's the advocacy priorities as mentioned. A lot of work was put into this, so thank you to administration for putting this together. It's a very valuable document for the rest of this term for this council, so it's very nice to see it. So thank you for that. Moving on, meeting highlights, Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and I'll move. A couple of highlights. Assessment and taxation. The tax sale was cancelled as per property owner affected have made the arrangement with the tax department. The finance the 2020 year-end presentation as scheduled to become on committee on April 13. The annual report is on track to come forward in May. IT and GIS, the City View Business License Portal scheduled to go live May 1st. Communication and marketing FI downtown event center and area nominating rights went live last week. This general good degree of interest into the business community. That's all I have for today.
Great, thanks, Councillor Minhas. Moving along under correspondence, item 8.1, a letter from Minister Schweitzer in response to a letter that we sent to the Premier. As you'll notice, there's some information there that we were requesting, and it lays out some of the work that the province is doing in regards to COVID recovery. So if I could just get a motion to receive that piece of correspondence, Councillor Blackburn.
So moved, Mayor Clayton.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. So I'll call the question. Please vote. And that motion carries unanimously. Moving on, item number 9 tonight, delegation business, and item 9.1, the Grande Prairie Regional Hospital Foundation. Any business arising from this delegation? Councillor Friesen.
Thank you. I'll move that we accept the presentation for information.
Great, thank you for that. Seeing no one else, that motion is in order. No comments and questions on the motion. Please vote. Councillor Bressie, you may have froze up again. I don't see you there. So just wait a minute to see if he joins back. Here he comes. Thanks, Councillor Bressie. And that his vote is now registered. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving along, there's no notices of motion, and I will call us recessed until 6 p.m. See you then. Thank you.
Are we having 6 o'clock today?
There's no 6 o'clock today.
Yeah.
Jackie, come
sorry,
back.
I'm back. Relax. Just give me a minute to turn everything back on. I apologize. I had another comment in there, but it's, yeah, so we're going to move to delegation business as there is no 6 p.m. portion of this meeting. I'm going to go across the screen to see if there's council member reports or any roundtable business that you would like to address at this time. I'll start with Councillor Thiessen.
Well, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I have a few reports to give to council here right now. I'm just going to get the first one all set up. The first meeting I had was on March 23rd with the Nighthawk Board of Directors. Pretty standard meeting, although there was some discussion in and around, I think this would interest council, around the T-bar lift, which we contributed $375,000 contingent on the other partners chipping in. Just an update, the County of Grande Prairie Council deferred their 25% to their April budget deliberations. And as of the 23rd of March, the MD of Greenview is humming and hawing on their 50% portion of it. So as reported by Councillor Tyler Olson. So I was able to remind him that the MD of Greenview is allowed to make decisions however they want, but the City of Grande Prairie's portion is contingent on the other funders contributing to that. And it seemed like the county was leaning towards contribution as well. So there's I don't know, some tense words, but Tyler said he'll come back and hopefully all will be good news at the end of the day for the ski hill. On March 24th, the directors of the Downtown Association met for our meeting. Of note, we had the election of officers. We elected the chair, vice chair, and treasurer. And to that extent, Christina McNeil will be duplicating her duties as chair this year as she did last year and continuing on. And finally, on March 26th, the board of the Grand Spirit Foundation met for our board meeting. In that meeting, we went over the audited financial statements and approved them. We also approved auditor MMP for the next tax year. And a couple good news pieces from Grand Spirit Foundation. We received a correspondence from the provincial government informing Grand Spirit that they were going to go back on their cuts and give us the promised portion of the rent subsidy program, and that was reinstated. So Director Manuel is aware of that. Steve Madden was in conversation with him, so that was good. This is important to council because we're looking to contribute $650,000 over the next 2 years. At least this year coming up will be mostly covered by the province. I think the total was $453,000, still under what they used to give at $750,000, but it's good news that that was reinstated. Good news for the city because otherwise we're picking up that tab, and if we can continue our advocacy going forward so that they don't have any further reductions in future years of budget. And finally, just a vaccine update. Currently, as of that meeting on March 26th, 82% of all lodge and apartment dwellers at our Grand Spirit Foundation facilities had been vaccinated, and 66% of staff. Steve Madden said that the increased education and awareness campaign conducted within Grand Spirit Foundation contributed to those numbers rising sharply over the last couple of weeks since our last meeting. So all that and more, nothing but good news. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I'll just check anything for roundtable while you were there, or are you good? Just your committee business. That's good.
Yeah, I had a few things, but nothing that I think I'll bore council with the details, since I just reported on 3 different committees. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I'll move on to Councillor Friesen.
Thank you. I'm very committee light this year, so I have nothing to report on committees, but I will mention a roundtable an event that I'm not sure if I don't think anyone else was at, but I attended from Belize to Byzance, and a presentation from archaeologist Dr. Sean Morton, who's a GPRC instructor, and Dr. Megan Paranki-Brown, who is an associate professor at the FS University and a GPRC visiting scholar. They've been together around the world, most recently in Belize, working on sites that, so there's different kinds of archaeological sites or archaeological understanding, and their specialty is in understanding about boom towns, actually, and kind of what happens when settlers come in, whether it's 5,000 years ago or 100 years ago. What happens when they come in, settle? Where do they go if they disappear quite quickly? So they've been working in Belize, and they are putting in an application and getting started on doing an archaeological dig in Byzantium to understand what happened to Byzantium as a town site. And one of the exciting things about this is that they will involve the community. So if you're at all interested in archaeology, history, archives, understanding Byzantium, watch for that, and you'll have the opportunity to go out and help on the dig and for a few days as well. So they're just in the beginning stages of getting this going, but it'll be something to really look forward to. And it's just amazing that we have these 2, world-class archaeologists locally who are going to work on a local community like Byzantium. So that was pretty fun to attend, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all goes.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Councillor Friesen. Councillor Minhas.
I don't have much to say, but I had a good time on the Easter holiday weekend with the family. That's what I have.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Councillor Minhas. Moving along, Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, I attended a Zoom meeting for Equiterra. It was a council against board, or not against, with the board, I guess. Sorry about that. We had a lot of good questions answered, and some still need to have questions answered. They were going to come back. I went to a virtual meet and greet with Grande Prairie Society on Wednesday, and I also attended the Accessibility Committee meeting, and it was about an hour long, and it was no outcomes from this meeting at all, but there was a lot of information shared. So we can talk about the roads and the sidewalks and the plans that we have in place, and that was about it. And other than that, that was all I can report on. I will have a heavy week next week because I've got a number of meetings this week. And but other than that, I had a great weekend. My wife and I sat there and watched old movies, fell asleep, and that was it. It was pretty boring for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I don't have any committee reports, but I would like to just give kudos to the city for the work that we're doing in cooperation with AHS to create the vaccine site at Teresa Sargent Hall. I think it's a much needed facility, and I'm looking forward to seeing great success in terms of vaccinating a lot of people in a relatively short amount of time. So thank you to city and city administration for your work in making that happen. I don't have anything else to report.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. One thing to report was I got to attend the annual performance planning meeting held by Superintendent Curry and his senior staff and members of the community to make the performance plan of RCMP over the next year. I got to be there with Mayor Clayton and a few others in our community, and it was very interesting to hear Mr. Curry's plans for the year and his priorities. A lot of it council is aware of. For example, very proud of the Special Investigation Unit, which really is a Canada-wide pioneering effort to make sure that there's better resources for follow-up on domestic and sexual complaints. And so there's a whole bunch of enforcement priorities that are underway, but also a lot of the conversation revolved around, if you look at the statistics in Grande Prairie, over the last couple of years, we've had drops in all types of crime. And by any objective matter, Grande Prairie is a safer place to live right now than it was a few years ago. It actually always was a pretty safe place to live anyways. But that's not necessarily the perception that people have in our community. And even if you look at the city's own citizen satisfaction survey, you'll see that as crime has been dropping, so has people's perceived safety. And so one of Superintendent Curry's priorities for the upcoming year is going to be increased visibility of the RCMP and better communication so that people can better understand what's actually happening in our community. So I think there's some promising work coming out of our RCMP, and I'm excited to see it over the next year. Then one other thing that I'll report, which is kind of a fun one, is I want to congratulate a number of members of our local film community. And there was a short film made, well, actually in Grand Cache, but made by Grande Prairie people called Journey to the Death Race. And last week, it was entered into the Alternative Film Festival, which is a Toronto film festival, although I'm assuming it went virtual this year. But Journey to the Death Race won Best Cinematography. It doesn't hurt that it's got some great scenery to work with, but congratulations to some of our local filmmakers. That's a fun little industry that I think is bringing some really good economic activity to our region, but also lets us tell our stories better to the world. So I wanted to give good kudos to the Journey to the Death Race crew.
Great, thanks, Councillor Bressie. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. A couple of things have already been highlighted. I wanted to say again, the other shareholders discuss what's working, not working for us with the City of Grande Prairie and that agreement. Councillor Thiessen and myself were also part of the airport AGM in the last few weeks here as well. Quickly just reporting, passenger movements from 19 to 20 were down 70%, not surprising. Overall airport traffic was down 27%. At the end of 2020, we have a reserve balance of 1.78 million, which I say we have a reserve balance, but looking at what happened with last year's financials and this year, we're all well aware the city might be having to dip between waters where we haven't for a long time, but the airport's definitely, until we get operational, it's not looking pretty there. Brian and his team, I've got to give it to Brian Grant, CEO, they're doing everything they can with layoffs and trying to get their expenses in line. It's incredibly tough when the revenue's dropped off. Also at our economic subcommittee to talk about Moscow funding, which I want to thank council for approving and getting that moved through. That was a good conversation with that group. I want to thank them for their work again. And lastly, I had an interesting call from Jan Shields regarding the archives. Although I'm not on the archives committee anymore, Councillor Friesen is. She wanted me to come see their potential new home and give thoughts from my building hat and just some of the conversations had. Touring the bottom of Center 2000, I forgot there was windows down there, and I'm looking forward to when that actually fully gets built out with the dream that the archives have. this is going to be an incredible space for them, and I think is a really good fit. I really want to thank Director Miller and Ms. Casualty. I know there was a lot of work into finding them a home. I'm sure there's other people in administration that were involved, but I really want to thank those two for their push to get this done. I think it's a really good fit for them long term, and really something that the city is actually purposing into space that was being used, but not to this potential. So thanks for that. And with that, that's my report.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Plott. Most of my items were already announced or identified. The RCMP annual performance, Aquaterra shareholder meeting, Grande Prairie Airport AGM. I also briefly, in between our special city council meeting, was part of a mid-sized city mayor's call. In some of my outreach conversations in the past 2 weeks, I spoke with Mayor Rycroft, Mayor Turnmeyer, and Mayor Potter. And as well with Director Glavin, had an update and a meeting with some of the stakeholders from Nautical, which was a good meeting just to get an update from them. Probably the highlight, though, was I had an opportunity and had a virtual meeting with the Honourable Salma Lakhani, the Lieutenant Governor. She was sworn in last August, and typically they would like to, Lieutenant Governors like to travel the province and meet as many communities and get around as much as possible. Obviously, right now that's not possible, so her and I had a phone call conversation. It was a great honor to be able to spend some virtual time with her and have a conversation as to things that are priorities of hers and what she's working on across the province currently, as much as possible virtually. Other than that, I was unable to attend the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association meeting due to a conflict. However, I do know that they are busy working on tourism programming for the region, so that you can still get out and enjoy the region without traveling too far from home. So keep an eye out for that. You'll see it through social media and other sort of marketing efforts, and I'm looking forward to see what they come up with. So thank you to that organization for that. And with that, that's my report. I see no one else. So very short meeting today, but thank you all for attending, and I'll call the meeting adjourned. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks all. We'll see you.